Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. Real Estate Coaching Radio is the nation's #1 daily radio show for realtors who demand authentic, real-time coaching. Get ready for fluff-free, unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what's truly working to get you into action, helping others, and making money now in today's real estate market. Now to our hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
3, 2, 1. All right, we are back. Today is May the 13th. We have a ton of news and headlines to share with all of you guys today. A lot of information coming out, obviously, about the new program the Democrats have proposed.
Another one.
Another $3 trillion. Why not? Just throw it on the campfire. What difference does it make at this point? More money. Yeah, we're going to share with you guys what we have heard about the new program and also what we are being told will actually pass. Because there's quite a few red herrings in the program that are kind of throwaways. But what will actually come from it will be a pretty substantial, obviously $3 trillion is a pretty substantial stimulus program. And we're going to tell you specifically how that pertains to all of you. So stay tuned. We have most of the drill down on that. I'm going to share with you guys, there's absolute urgency to this message. And please listen to what I'm saying and listen to what I'm saying in the absolute most focused drill down sense that you possibly can. This boom is not going to last. I know some of you guys aren't even experiencing it yet, but I've had coaching calls after coaching calls where people are getting overwhelmed or they're feeling like, oh my gosh, the market's going to return. It's going to return, but it's not going to last for much longer than maybe through, we're hoping, early fall. For a whole bunch of reasons we've talked about in the previous podcast, but really the bottom line is there can be no meaningful recovery of housing until there is the unemployment rate goes down, and also until there is some sort of vaccine or at least some sort of therapy for the coronavirus. And add to that the other headwinds with this being an election year, and of course everyone's going to be essentially loving the bad news about for whatever political consternations they might have, and it's going to psychologically mess with a lot of people's mindsets about feeling optimistic. And generally speaking, people don't buy real estate unless they're feeling optimistic, unless they're feeling hopeful. What we are seeing, we've been talking about this on the podcast, is people's core behavior is more focused on obviously fear, but more focused on preparation for whatever comes next into the fall. So people are preparing. We've been sharing with you guys reports of savings rates going up and all the rest of it. But as far as you're concerned, please listen to your coach, or maybe Julie and I are your future coach. You have to be making the most of this mini boom that we're experiencing. Double in your own listings. Focus on going after that FSBO. Do not drive past a FSBO. Do not let check in your computer looking for the expireds. If you're a listing agent already, don't just do what you were doing 90 days ago and sticking it in the MLS and waiting for somebody else to sell it. Focus on doubling your own listings. Make as much money helping as many people as you can as fast as possible. And you have to be an absolute ninja about pre-qualifying. And, look, guys, if you have to choose between a buyer and a seller, always choose the seller, but make sure that seller has to sell. Don't be listing want to sells, and be very careful with the buyers you're working with, because they're the ones that are going to suck all your best energies. And we've talked about all this on previous podcasts, so just go back and ear gorge and all that content. So we're giving you real suggestions like yesterday's show on what you can be doing to make sure you're sticking with buyers who are actually going to buy. So what you must do now, in addition to what I just said, putting yourself obviously in a mental and emotional state to make the most of this market, is if you have not done this yet, you have to do it. You have to be applying for the SBA programs. You have to be applying for the IDL programs through the SBA. Apply for unemployment. I know that's painful for a lot of you to conceive. Put your stuff in forbearance, because what we've seen is exactly what we told you would happen back at the beginning of March. The programs take longer to roll out. Programs take longer to implement. The programs take, and then what happens is the programs get changed, and they get changed and again and again and again, and they become more complicated. They become more onerous as far as paperwork. So urgently text the word survival to 31996 and then log into the free coaching program. Click on the tab that says Ultimate Agent Survival Guide, and then you're going to see it's broken into 3 parts: personal, protect, and profit. And you must be completing the first leg of it, which is the personal section, where we're going to show you how to financially put your own mask on first and take full advantage of all those financial bailout programs. The future you will thank you for having done all these things, I promise you. So make the most of this and do it urgently, because most of you will not see the money from any of these programs, and most of which are grants. It's free money. You won't see the benefit for maybe 60 to 90 days, which will pretty much time out with what we're feeling is going to be the peak of this mini boom. And you're going to be so thankful that you did this, because you're going to have added cash flow that you can, prepare yourself if indeed some of these, scientists and whatnot, if they're to be believed, are right that there's going to be a return of the virus into the fall. So assuming worst case scenario and assuming they're right, you're going to thank your lucky stars that you did what Julie and I suggested. So text the word survival to 31996. So Julie, welcome to today's show.
Yes, thank you. And there are quite a few headlines. So let's jump right in. We have mentioned the new $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill. It includes, as of now, nearly $1 trillion in relief for state and local governments. But how are you directly affected? A second round of direct payments. This is a stimulus check payments of another $1,200 per person and up to $6,000 for a household. If they change any of that, you'll be able to have access to how do you calculate for your household when you text survival to 31996. We'll update that with a stimulus check calculator, as well as tracking when it's going to come. Also, a $200 billion amount set aside for hazard pay for essential workers, some money set aside for testing, an extension, this affects you, of the $600 per week federal unemployment insurance benefit now through January. The provision that was approved in March was set to expire in July, so now it goes through January, the rest of the year.
We should drill down on that. Isn't that exactly what Julie and I told you guys would happen? Yes, it was. Mm-hmm. So that is going to get approved. No politician is going to say we're not going to continue unemployment, and you're going to see it's going to go into 2021 as well. But here's what matters. And listen, if you're listening to us for the first time, you qualify for unemployment if you're hearing our voice, because literally all of you qualify. Whether you're W-2, whether you're 1099, whether you quit your job, whether you just doesn't matter what. And all the criteria for how you qualify for the Federal CARES Act unemployment is on the website. So text the word survival to 31996. But generally speaking, most of you will make $2,500, and some of you will make up to $4,000 per month. And I was just on a great coaching call, and I was explaining to him, he's got listings, he's doing fantastic, and but his income is definitely down. His business is definitely slowed, and he definitely qualifies for unemployment insurance. Him and his wife both do. She's self-employed. He's self-employed. I did quick calculations, and Julie and I are no experts at this, but it seemed to me that they should be able to make close to $6,000 a month in unemployment. And now they're extending this Federal CARES Act, unemployment insurance to the end of the year. Guys, look, even if he doesn't use that money, he can save the money. If he wants to never actually spend it, he can give the money back. But I want him and I want you guys to take care of yourselves now and use as many of these bailout programs as are humanly possible. And again, the future you will definitely thank you for it. And this guy's got 4 kids. And I was thinking when I was talking to him, I got to make sure this guy's got money to pay for presents for his, kids at Christmas. And now he will, because he's going to take advantage of these programs. We are in this horrible time in the economy from no fault of our own. This is something that happened from the pandemic and then the government deciding to shut all the businesses down. You did not make a mistake, but you will make a mistake if you don't take advantage of these bailout programs. That's what they're there for.
That's right. I mean, and we've said before, this is not a moral decision. This is not a political decision. It is literally a constitutional issue. Not even an issue. It's just a fact. The Fifth Amendment and the Takings Clause, this is exactly what is supposed to happen constitutionally. They take something away, your ability to earn at the level you were before. They have to give it back to you. So speaking of which, back to our new $3 trillion.
Yeah,
that's
$3
right.
trillion. I can't even say it right.
Right. $175 billion in rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. Now, they don't refer exactly to where that's going and how it's being allocated, but I'm sure we'll get details on that. So the difference here is that rent is now included in some of this.
Exactly. That was the important part.
Yeah.
So there is a definite getting more organized movement for tenants, because they know that if you own, basically you can get a forbearance on your mortgage, and a lot of these tenants are now starting to say, well, if you're not paying your mortgage, why should I pay your rent? Mr. Landlord.
Rent strikes and things
right.
like that.
I mean, so the unintended consequences of all these great, well thought through programs are always shocking. But there you go. So now they're going to have some kind of bailout for tenants. And they're obviously mortgage, those of you who have rental properties and whatnot, you put all your properties in forbearance. The CARES Act dictates that you have 12-month forbearance. Again, all that's on that website. Text survival to 31996. But all of you should be urgently putting all of your mortgages in forbearance. And yes, you can still collect rent. So, I mean, there you go.
Yes, and by the way, this new one is going to be called the HEROES Act. Okay, so CARES was first. Now we're doing the HEROES Act. If you want to be tracking this, of course, we'll track it for you. But when you hear that term bandied about, then that's what they're referring to.
I was just laughing to myself because can you imagine being the politician that voted against the HEROES Act?
Right. You know it has to do with that.
It's never going to happen.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last one, and again, this probably has to do with the SBA. They don't specifically say in this particular report. Measures are designed to buoy small businesses and help them keep employees on payroll. Well, that sounds like the PPP. And then it goes on to say, such as a $10 billion in emergency disaster assistance grants, and a strengthened employee retention tax credit. So again, we'll be reporting on all the details once those become available to us. All right, next article. What should we choose? All right, so I read something interesting that I'm going to be tracking. I'm going to be crunching some numbers from Housing Wire. Was talking about can we still have some kind of a normal year in housing? Well, first time I read that, I'm like, well, what do you think? Right? Doesn't sound like a normal year in any way. We're not there yet. But they crunched a lot of numbers, and they were talking about how a fair chunk of the unemployed were in lower paid wage workers who probably were not in the housing market anyway. So this is something I need to dive down into the math. I thought, well, that's an interesting thought. Maybe, the whole article was, what's the balance going to be when we get more inventory coming out? And then we have tighter lending standards, but we also have pent-up demand. So how will that equation balance out is the big question.
So the theory is, and we both read this article, and Julie and I had slightly different conclusions. She's more of a proponent of what the author was trying to say in the Housing Wire article, but what he doesn't really address, at least I didn't think he addressed, was the fact that if there are unemployed people who, they'll call them lower wage workers if you'd like, whatever they are classified as, that means they're unemployed by, let's say, employers that were not lower paid workers. And if those employers that were not lower paid workers who had been, let's say, in the housing market are not hiring their employees back, it's because their businesses don't need the employees because they're not making any money. So that's the ultimate fallacy in the idea that somehow this is strictly a lower wage worker problem. And we found lots of information coming out about the fact that white collar people were losing their jobs en masse as well for the reasons I just stated. I mean, so, I like the possible twist that Housing Wire was bringing out with regards to...
It's interesting to think about.
It is interesting to think about. Yeah, but really it's a confidence game, ultimately. Like I was on a call this morning with Rob Johnson, who's the number one agent in Greenwich, Connecticut, one of the number one agents in the nation. The guy sold $30 million worth of real estate last year. Him and basically 1.5 assistants. That's how we teach agents to run their businesses, by the way, guys. So I was talking with him about the nature of the transactions that he's starting to have spin up. And there is a lot of Looney Tunes out there.
I'm seeing that too with the Premier Coaching.
But you guys, so this is one of the messages that I wanted to leave all of you with from this podcast today. Looney Tunes is normal now. So you're going to have to learn to be A, more patient with yourself, and B, you're going to have to learn to be more patient with your clients because most of them are experiencing a higher level of continuous stress than they ever have in their lives. And I mean that quite literally.
That's for sure.
Just the uncertainty. Most people will only go from comfortable situation to comfortable situation to comfortable situation. Their whole lives are basically, wall to wall, never wanting to be uncomfortable. And that's the reason most people, frankly, never really do anything extraordinary with their lives because of the fact that they're so focused on just being comfortable. Discomfort has become a bad thing. That isn't the way our country was built, but that's the way it's become. Everyone wants to be nerfed up. And so as a result of that, what you're going to see is a huge divide that's going to happen in the economy and in the real estate business from the people that, just intellectually this should make sense to all of you. If you're willing to be uncomfortable in these uncertain times and learn things that maybe you have maybe knew you needed to learn but chose not to learn because it was what you perceived to be easier paths forward. In other words, you were wanting just to be comfortable, and gosh knows that some of the things that Tim and Julie are going to ask you to do will make you uncomfortable. If you're willing to be uncomfortable, and if you're willing to be more tolerant of a little bit of Looney Tunes behavior out there, you're going to clean up. There's no two ways about it. Because remember this, everyone's nature in our country right now, because we all are nerfed up. I remember, just to put this in perspective, I'm 50, and I remember when, we play on the, rusty, rickety, playgrounds where there was jagged rocks if you fell off the slide.
Survival of the fittest playground?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And nowadays, we take Zoe to a playground, it's like you're walking on a cloud, and, everything is like
spongy.
Everything's ergonomically correct, and, it's ridiculous. There's warning signs everywhere. It's like, oh my gosh, what has happened? The world has gone nerfed up, okay? That's what people are used to, but they're not going to experience that now. When they come back out of their hidey holes from these, quarantines, agents, neighbors, clients, buyers, sellers, they are going to be experiencing a bizarre world. You can start seeing some of this imagery that's from Europe and from even Asia, how people are interacting, the forced, 6 feet away with your masks on, and just the bizarre nature of everything is going to make those people who have never really experienced any true hardship in their lives because they've been nerfed up all their lives, they are not going to be able to emotionally deal with it. You have to be stronger than they are. And matter of fact, you are probably maybe experiencing that type of anxiety too. So just be conscious of it and be conscientious of it for the sake of yourself and for your customers. Give yourself a break, and laugh at it. That's what... Literally laugh at it. Laugh at the insanity that the world has become. Laugh at the craziness.
Didn't we all laugh when the murder hornets came out? Like, well, of course we're going to have
that. But that
aliens.
Aliens, right. We put a story on our website, and guys, it's true. It's absolutely crazy that there's actually, from the government, from the U.S. Navy, they said they have, it's on our website. Or just go to Google and just Google aliens U.S. Navy. It's not made up. It's not fake news. We thought it was.
I totally thought it was.
So look for things that make you laugh. Don't look inside, a bottle of wine to relax all the time, because that's a problem you don't want to have for a long period of time, right? Don't start, we were on a Zoom yesterday. We're not going to mention anything or anybody, but
not by name.
We can see, and maybe this guy didn't know his camera was on, but in his time zone, it was like noon, and this guy was having the best part of a glass of Chardonnay at noon. That's not good.
And that might not have been his first one either.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Granted, you and I are probably a little bit easier to take with someone's a little bit inebriated, but still.
Maybe it's us.
At noon? Come on now.
And the other thing is, people are not necessarily exercising the way they should.
Right.
So, you really have to keep an eye on yourself. And by the same token, expect to see a bit more crazy out there. Yep. Don't you think it'd be weird if people weren't freaked out? I think it would be. So expect people to be keyed up, whether those are your leads, your clients, people getting ready to close, people moving. You remember how nervous people normally are when they move. It's a big deal. So then you layer on top a global pandemic and, 3 or 4 kids you have to homeschool by day, and your spouse being out of work. Well, people might be feeling a little bit of stress. It's okay. Be the leader. Help them through it.
Right. And that's the reason that Julie and I have been absolutely doing our best to beat on you guys, to take advantage of all these government programs. Because what you don't want, on top of all the normal weirdness that we're all experiencing, are financial problems. That is what you don't want. Because lack of money and worrying about money will make everything 1,000 times worse. Yep. Look, we're real estate coaches. We teach you guys how, the book that we wrote, Harris Rules, which is the bestseller, almost 400 5-star reviews on Amazon, is available at Barnes & Noble if there's ever a Barnes & Noble at the other end of this. The subtitle of the book is
Amazon.
A real estate, that's right, it's on Amazon. A real estate agent's practical, no BS, step-by-step guide to becoming rich and free. Trust me when I tell you, there's no carve-out in the book for us telling agents to get unemployment. But right now, you have to be practical and tactical. So that goes back to, if you were in the military, they would tell you to be downrange. They would tell you to be locked and ready. They would tell you to be, the Marines have a saying called being frosty, right? You're being situationally aware. Okay, there's enough military terms for all of you, but you get the point. That's where your mental and emotional state has to be. You can't be in this state of craziness. You can't be, rowing your boat around Looney Tunes Lake. You need to be actually working. You need to be focused. Otherwise, you're not going to have any money in the fall, other than what you might be able to get from some of these bailout programs.
Speaking of which, Tim, I'm going to update here in the next 10 minutes or so. If they text survival to 31996, we're going to have an updated directive on how to get your stimulus check if you haven't gotten it yet. So if you want it direct deposited, you have about 24 hours to figure this out.
Yep.
You've got to go directly to the IRS's website. I'm going to put this in our survival thing here. And you have to have, let's see, I had the information here. They've created this. It's called Get My Payment Tool. You need your 2019 return if filed and your 2018 return. And then you can figure out your payment status, payment type, and request that it be direct deposited.
That's the stimulus program. That's the stimulus
Yes.
money that all of you get. I think it's up to $1,500 per adult or something, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
So we'll update that today as well.
Right. And so I'm so tired of talking about, and hopefully you guys are tired of hearing about all these bailout programs, but we're just getting started because the fact is these bailout programs are probably going to last years. So there it is. That's the information. You got to move forward with all these things. There are going to be no more programs. We're going to do everything in our power to keep you on the front lines of how to take advantage of all of them to their fullest. But also, we're going to be telling you guys exactly what you need to be doing to prepare yourselves to be of service to agents or just buyers and sellers in this new market. Brokers, agents, if you guys are not talking with me about joining eXp Realty and being part of Julie and I's team, we really do need to have a coming to Jesus session with regards to the validity of your current business model. Look, some of you, you're procrastinating because you're hoping and praying that Julie and I are wrong, especially you brokers. But Julie and I, all we're doing is mirroring what much smarter people than us are actually telling us about what's going to be happening next in the economy. We're not really, prognosticators beyond the sense that we are using common sense and experience to have a fairly clear window forward. But really what matters at this point is that you understand that for the most part, the traditional brokerage model is dead. It's not going to exist in this new world for a variety of reasons, but the biggest one being that agents aren't going to want to go to your office. But even if they do want to go to your office, I want you to think about this. Is errors and omissions insurance going to cover you in the event that agents going to your office get sick from coronavirus? No. The answer is no. So you hypothetically could be held liable for having an office that was not coronavirus proofed, whatever that is. We shared with you guys a story yesterday in the Netherlands, of all places. McDonald's is testing different restaurant essentially layouts. And there's pictures of it there will be pictures of it on our website, but you can also just Google the images. And it is crazy. It's like, people are standing in these little yellow circles that are 6 feet apart wearing masks. When you walk into the restaurant itself, you're going to have to essentially be, completely sanitized from head to toe. You walk up to a kiosk, you order your food, the food arrives. If you want to sit in the restaurant, all the chairs, you have to sit side by side with people, and everyone's facing forward. Think about the insanity of all that. That's for a stinking McDonald's restaurant. God bless them. Now you got to think, okay, what other businesses and how are they going to change? What you think of a business, you guys think of any business that does not, involve people essentially tripping over each other, right? Any kind of organized anything that has a lot of people going there they're all going to be having the liability conversation. And that's what Julie and I warned you guys about at the beginning of March. That's the reason that events are going to get canceled and not come back. Burning Man of all things in Nevada, right? Some of you guys know about that lunacy. They're doing Burning Man online, an online Zoom, I guess. Burning Man, I don't know how that's going to work, but there you go. But everything's going to move towards some sort of online format. Google and Zoom and all these other big companies are all competing. Facebook, they're all competing with the best online, video conferencing experience, and it's just going to get better and better and better. So the macro trend here that all of you better be paying attention to, especially if you're a broker, is you've got to deleverage out of your current business model urgently because it's going to be irrelevant. Buyers they don't go to your office anyway. So buyers and sellers who weren't going to your office anyway are definitely not going to go now. In addition to that, agents aren't going to want to go there. Agents are going to expect you to have an online experience of some variety. And many of you don't have the money, and you shouldn't even have to even consider trying to basically bring your tech up to pace. You can't keep pace. How would you like to right now have to, say, well, you know what, I'm going to copy eXp Realty. I'm going to do what they've been doing for the past 12 years. You can't. They have too much of an advantage. So the smartest move for you to at least consider, and take me up on having a one-on-one coaching call with me about this. And I'll run the numbers with you. Let's just have a facts-based, non-emotional conversation. And we'll see if it makes sense to you. By the way, I've not had a single conversation yet where it did not make sense to the broker, where the broker didn't end up making more money. Because the brokers ultimately, they know. A lot of you guys don't know your numbers. You sort of kind of maybe do. A couple of you do, but most of you don't. You just are trusting your gut, and your gut is probably telling you that the market's shifting and then it's not going to shift back. You need to trust your gut here. Stop breathing the hopium, right? Start believing in the reality that what you're seeing around you is not going to go away. It's not temporary. Don't go down with the ship. The smart move is to pivot your business, your brokerage business, or your team business towards the next evolution, which is, in our opinion, eXp Realty. So if you want to have that conversation, a one-on-one call with me, I do those every afternoon. Just text me directly at 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206. In the meantime, guys, make sure you grab your survival guide, you become a member of the free coaching program, no strings attached. Just go text the word survival to 31996. Text the word survival to 31996. In the meantime, you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you for making this and keeping this the number one listened to daily podcast for real estate agents in the nation. We're honored to be part of your lives. And you know what? Anytime, anything we can do for you, just reach out. Have a fantastic day.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows, and until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.